Continue in Shmuel Aleph. We're going to start Perek Yud Ches shortly. Just have to finish up a couple loose ends in Perek Yud Zayin regarding the issues of Shul asking about who this fellow David was, when on the other hand he seemed to have had been playing music for him. So how could he not know who David was? That was the question. So we gave one interpretation. Rashi brought the Gemara, we brought the Malvin's interpretation, brought Rashi's interpretation, that they were really asking, was he suitable to be for kingship? And then the question then became, was he suitable even to be a Jew? Because he was a descendant from Moab. And the whole question is, why is a female Moab woman acceptable or not? That was the issue. I think that was the last thing we spoke about. So the Musar Navim raises the question. There's a number of answers to this, but this is an answer I haven't seen before. He asks, why did Hashem make it that the kingdom of David should come from such a root from another nation? It should come from Moab. To the point where you have to even ask whether he's capable of entering the congregation of Israel because of that. So he says like this. The Musar Navim says, "V'nira leimer shezeu mishum demi beis David harehu asid lotzeis gama Mashiach shalanu." From the house of David has to come the Mashiach. V'harei yavo lo rak Yisrael bilvad kim l'chol amim. The Mashiach is not only for the Jewish people. The Mashiach is for all the nations of the world. As it says in Yeshayahu, it says, all the goyim will seek him out. So he's not just a king for the Jewish people, but really is a king for the entire world. So therefore, in order to appease the spirit of the entire world, Hashem has to make it that his root can't only come from the Jews alone, but rather he has to come from one of the nations of the world, so that they could feel that they also have a portion in him. And there's different Gemaras that talk about how everybody feels that the Mashiach comes from their place, as it were. Everyone feels a connection to that Mashiach. So how is everyone going to feel a connection? So that's what every politician would love to have, that everybody feels that he's their favorite son, as the political expression goes. He's from Munzer. He's one of our guys. He's one of our guys. We like him. So therefore, if David comes partially from one of our guys, and Moab is definitely one of their guys, so they'll say, since one of our guys is there too, so people are able to deal with that. So that's a very interesting idea of why he should have to come from that group as well. And maybe at another time we'll talk about the Shir Shmuel has to say. There's all kinds of other things that have to happen, but this is a simple interpretation. Other interpretations say why he didn't recognize David is because when David took off the armor, so he thought that David maybe was just leaving. He wasn't going to fight at all. And therefore the person who killed Goliath maybe was somebody else. Wasn't sure who that was. Couldn't have been him. Another interpretation is that Shul was the king. And a king doesn't necessarily have the time to get to know all his workers. And the fact that even David was playing for him, he didn't necessarily know who it was. It was just it was a bacher. A bacher came to play for him, and that's all. He didn't necessarily know who David was. And Metzudas probably gives the most pragmatic interpretation and says because of the depression that he had, he probably just forgot. He knew who David was, and then he goes through his bouts of depression. And when you're having bouts of depression, it makes you forget things. So he forgot who David was, and maybe we'll see later on why psychologically it would be convenient for him to forget who David was. But be that as it may, these are the different interpretations for him. Now we're going to move into Perek Yud Ches, which is a very, very difficult chapter to understand. And what I think we'll do first, we'll go through the chapter, and the questions will become fairly obvious as we go through over here. And I'm presently going through a sefer that I've had for a long time. I never went through it. It's called Ma Bein Shul David by Rabbi Yeshua Bachrach, and it's really long. It's all interwoven. I'm trying to get all the pieces together. So hopefully tomorrow or next week we'll be able to go through what he says to really make sense out of this, because it's tremendous tragedy, tragic figure of Shul. Really, we get in earnest in seeing the tragic nature of his life. But first, we are now shown a new aspect. So let's begin. Perek Yud Ches Pasuk Aleph. Vayihi kechalaso ledaber el Shul. So it was when he finished speaking to Shul. V'nefesh Yehonasan nikshara b'nefesh David, and the soul of Yonasan was tied to the soul of David. V'yehavohu Yonasan kinafsho, and Yonasan loved David like his soul. So the Malbim is going to explain, and we'll first go with the Malbim's interpretation. Malbim is going to say, what is going to happen now is we're going to see the rise of David HaMelech. His mazel, as it were, continues to grow and grow and grow, and this will now become a tremendous source of jealousy for Shul, to the point where Shul is going to want to kill him. So Malbim will take us step by step and show us how this is all playing out over here. All right. So therefore, so we're just following up on the last parak when he says they said to Shul, "This is David is Ben Yishai." They finally tell you who it is. So now that Shul knows who it is, so it's interesting. Even in this pasuk itself, it's unusual. Like why do we need to hear the words "Vayihi kechalaso ledaber el Shul"? It was when the servants finished speaking to Shul and telling us who David was, as if to say that now is the reason why Yonasan loves David. But so Malbim says it's talking about how he's growing, how David's star is rising, and number one, it's mitzad Yonasan. That as soon as they finished talking about David, so Yonasan's soul began to love David, because as we'll see in a minute, that people who are similar to each other will love each other. And Yonasan loved them like his soul. So it wasn't any other kind of love, but a pure love. So this already, we can't go past this without bringing the famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. And really, there's a pasuk in Shir HaShirim that we'll have to deal with as well. But let's start with, where are you? Well, it's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Perek Hey, pasuk Mishnah Yutes. Mishnah over there says that Mishnah says that there's two types of love. There's an ahava hatluya b'davar. There's a love that depends on something, and there's an ahava she'eina tluya b'davar. There's a love that does not depend on anything. The Mishnah Pirkei Avos says that a love that depends on something, if that something goes away, then the love goes away. And if the love doesn't depend on anything, then the love can never go away. So, this will be a constant theme throughout the Sefer, how the love between David and Yonasan is so amazing. So this is the love she'eina tluya b'davar. So we'll give you the Rambam's interpretation of that Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. The Rambam says pretty much what we said. He said, if the physical reasons for love is what brings the love, so those physical reasons are nullified, so therefore what came into being because of a reason, as soon as the reason leaves, so that thing, that love that came into being because of the reason, then it has to leave. But on the other hand, if the siba, the love, the reason for love, he calls it inyan aloki, is a godly love. Meaning to say one that's coming from one's soul. Right? That's a godly love. That is the true value that exists. So that love can never leave, because it's coming from an eternal source. If it's coming from the soul, that is something that's not dependent on outside factors. If it's really your soul, your nefesh, what's inside of you, then if that is the source of the love, then that's a love that can never leave. So now, what was this godly source of this love? So it's the Malbim is hints to it, and the sefer that we're looking at over here, this one I mentioned, Ma Bein David Shol David, he says it very clearly. And why was Yonasan the one who's the only one who really can really see this? Because really, Yonasan himself was very worthy for being the next king. In terms of his own virtues, he was very virtuous to be the king. He almost had everything to be the king. And he himself, if you recall, going back a few chapters, when the Jews were getting ready for a fight against the Plishtim, they didn't know how to deal with that fight. And Shaul wasn't sure how to deal with the Plishtim. And it was Yonasan who went with his arms bare. And he himself single-handedly had the courage to jump right in and create that tremendous commotion, if you recall that battle, which the Jews won in a very big way. So Yonasan was a very courageous person who did these things l'shem shamayim. And you could be sure another question has to be asked. Well, everybody was afraid of Goliath. What happened to Yonasan?
Yeah.
Wasn't Yonasan somebody who could maybe take him on? So he says all those 40 days he was preparing himself. He was davening that he should get this gevura to come over him, that he should be able to attack this Plishti. But in all honesty, he felt that he was lacking. He didn't have everything that was necessary to be able to destroy him. So when David comes along and Yonasan sees that he has this same godly virtues that he had not reached, so his soul reached and connected with David's soul, because they had very similar spiritual qualities that existed between them. And the Bartanura explains in Pirkei Avos that this example of a love, Pirkei Avos says, what's the example of a love that doesn't depend on anything? That's the love of David and Yonasan. That is that love. And the Bartanura explains, what is that? Lahashlim ritzon konam. To be able to complete the will of their Creator. If two people really a love that doesn't depend on anything has to depend on a love that you have for Kodesh Baruch Hu. If you have a love that you have for Kodesh Baruch Hu and you want to be the best Jew you can be, then you'll find a kindred spirit in another Jew who wants to be the best Jew he can be. And that's what Yonasan says to David later on. We're not going to get there yet. You will be the king and I will be your viceroy. And now we have to now add the Ramban's comments in Parshas Kedoshim on the words of After Kamocha to finish off the point over here. There's a fine line, as we will see as we go through, there's a fine line between love and hate. Very fine line. The person you can love the most is the person you can hate the most as well. And this, unfortunately, is going to be the two different paradigms between Yonasan and his father Shaul.
Those are closer than disinterest.
What?
Those are closer than disinterest.
That's right. So on the words of V'haftarecha kamocha, Ani Hashem, says the Ramban, he says, V'yitzav ha'kosav shlo tiyeh pchisus hakina hazos b'libo. Ramban says that jealousy should not be in your heart towards another Jew. He says, Avol yahav b'rabos hatov l'chavero. A person should be very happy with all the benefits that his friend would have. Kasher adam oisel nafsho, like a person would want for himself. Lo yitein shiurim b'ava. You shouldn't give your love in measurements. Ramban earlier says that people are very happy to give to others. People are very happy to give to others, and to even love people to a certain extent. There usually is a line where we go up to a certain point and we stop. And where's that line? We're very happy to give people a lot as long as it's less than what we have. As long as he's less than me, then it's easier for me to give. But all of a sudden, when I'm going to give him to the point where he's going to be equal to me, or maybe even greater than me, that is already difficult. And that's what the Torah is saying. V'haftarecha kamocha. Just like for yourself, you want unlimited. The sky's the limit for yourself. Then when you give to others, the sky should be the limit for others. He says, and that's why now the Ramban uses the example. Al Kain Omer b'Yohainasan. Therefore by Yohainasan it says, Ki avas nefesh avo. A soulful love he had for him. Why? Because Yonasan removed the attribute of jealousy from his heart. He says, you will reign over the Jewish people. So what does that mean? It means that Yonasan recognized that his friend David was greater than him. And therefore, there's only one way to really remove jealousy from a person, as we'll see. And the way to remove jealousy from your heart is to fill your heart with love. Your heart's got to be filled with something. So it's filled with love, then the jealousy can go away. And that's the psychological way that it works. So, and Yonasan, as we'll see much more. So he was able to look at David as the true David as he was, and he saw that he's very spiritual, and there's a lot that Klal Yisrael will benefit from this person. And the fact that David is helping Jewish people, and he is in my same domain of how I help the Jewish people. So we're kindred spirits, and I'm not jealous over the fact that he is even greater than me. And if anything, there's what I could probably learn from him. And therefore, you have to fill that feeling with a tremendous amount of giving to make that happen. And we'll see, as we'll go through this story, that this really became the test of Shul. Everything that happened to Shul is an amazing test to try to get into the tshuva, which unfortunately he fails. But Yonasan is able to see this much more clearly than his father. And therefore, what happens in Yonasan is incredible love that he has for David. On the other hand, with Shul, it turns out to be exactly the opposite. That's an important idea we have to keep in our minds throughout. Now, on a little more mystical note, the Rabbi Michalowicz says in the Sefer Poket HaKarim on page Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, he says the first one who the soul of the Mashiach ben Yosef was revealed to in this world appears to me was Yonasan. Yonasan is the first light of the Mashiach ben Yosef. Again, it's from the tribe of Binyamin. Binyamin and Yosef go together. And he says, and therefore he was killed, even though you don't really find a sin that's written about him. I mean, no, the Mashiach ben Yosef has to be killed. But this is where he adds, he says, this is the idea of his love for David. Where over there it says that it was even greater than the love for women. Because they shared one bond. They had one commonality. He says, "V'chein Mashiach ben Yosef u'Mashiach ben David yiu trein rein delo misparshim." The Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David are two friends that never separate from each other. And that's why the Navi hints to it when it talks about the two trees, the Eitz Yosef and the Eitz Yehuda, that will be together. The Navi talks about this, where really they are Yesod and Malchus. Yesod and Malchus. David and Yosef and David is Yesod and Malchus, so they go together. That's the end of the midos, where they make everything happen. It's the one that Yesod is what is able to bond everything together, takes all the other five midos and brings them together. And like Yesod, is the tzaddik has nothing for himself. Similarly, the king has nothing for himself. It makes everything happen. So those are two midos that are very strongly connected to each other. So therefore, mystically, there was this connection, and really, in a perfect world of Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef, as we said, Mashiach ben Yosef is happy to give over the leadership to the Mashiach ben Yosef to finish off the job. To the Mashiach ben David, that should finish off the job. So therefore, mystically, it's supposed to be going on over here, and on a level just of life, that they have kindred souls. They both really, at the end of the day, only care for what Hashem wants. And that's where Shul falls just a little bit short. A little bit short. He has his own opinion too. And in that area, and he's been rebuked a few times for this already. And therefore, we can see that Yonasan was able to get beyond that. He wasn't as blemished from that. Now, you can say, why was he not blemished and Shul not? Yes. So it's interesting. Because I'll just start off with some of the questions. He asks, he says, first of all, how could Shul, you're going to see a total transformation in him in this chapter. He's going to become a bloodthirsty murderer. It's like Jekyll and Hyde. You're going to see coming up over here. He was so humble. He was so this. He was so that. And now he's really goes after David. So that's something that needs a lot of thought over there. And on the other hand, we see that he seems to have been a not well person. He was having this depression, whatever we want to call it. So, listen, the depression sort of could be an excuse for the way he behaved. And if anything, it seems that Hashem is being extremely cruel to him, that he's making life so difficult and giving him such difficult challenges over here, as if Shul can't even do tshuva if he wanted to do tshuva. He's an unhealthy person to be able to do tshuva. And more than this, like he sticks David right in his face. Like, and this is all very important, because we'll see, if we look in our own lives, we see that Hashem does this to us all the time. Shul Mamish is pushed to the limit. He is like going crazy. B'dafka, the guy to make him feel better with the music, is the guy who's going to take his throne away from him. It's a very difficult thing to understand. And he brings down from another source, and you can see where this brings itself out. It says, they were asking him, as we end off in the parsha there, in the last parak, he's looking at David, someone who maybe be the king. Now remember, Hashem has already told Shul, I'm going to give the kingdom to somebody else already. So he already heard that. So, it's interesting when the troops go to battle, that the Kohen comes and asks a number of questions and gives a number of people excuses they can leave battle. Someone who built a house and has not yet dedicated it, lest he die and someone else dedicate it. Person plants a vineyard, didn't finish the vineyard, somebody else comes along and harvests it. And somebody who engaged to a woman and has not yet married her, lest he die and someone else marry her. So Rashi just adds a few very important words. He says, V'ish acher yechanchenu, someone else will dedicate the house. So Rashi says, V'diber al agmas nefesh, v'davar shal agmas nefeshu. That's something that causes tremendous anxiety. Agmas nefesh. To know that you did all the work and it's going to go somewhere else. That's something that it's a lot of pain. And a person cannot go to battle knowing that there's kind of pain over there.